American way.
Conscious leadership.
It's time, come on. It's time, come on.
Conscious culture.
You can do it, yeah. You can do it. Come on.
Stakeholder orientation. Conscious capitalist. Conscious capitalist. Conscious capitalist.
With
12 and 14-year programs in underprivileged communities because I knew that's where a need was at. And I got the kids to come to a church or an event when the report cards came out. And then I got law enforcement officers through the community outreach department of, the law enforcement agencies. Man, I just went in there, bro. I dressed up in a suit. I went in there and I sat in there. And sometimes, especially when I went to the city, I would sit in there all day and I wouldn't talk to anyone, but I'd come back day after day after day. So eventually I got cops. Started getting cops. They started hearing me, and then these cops would go and they would mentor these kids at these churches and at these settings, and then I'd.
All right, I'm sorry. I want to back up for a minute. You said you went in there and you started talking to the police officers, right?
Yes, sir.
What was the message you were saying to the police officers?
Hey, look, I'll meet you halfway. I got this group of kids, right? And, they knew all of the racial tension and everything that was going on. I got these kids. I can bring these kids and these parents to this environment. I want you to come and speak to these children. But it served a dual purpose because I was being really slick, right? My whole mentality was I don't want law enforcement officers in our community until they know our children. That was the number one thought pattern that I had. Until you know these kids, don't come around. So, but I had to find a way to make that appealing to the law enforcement officers and the kids at the same time. So what I did was I told the law enforcement officers, this isn't a judgment to you. I just want to open up an opportunity for you to learn our kids, which was something at that point, for the majority, most of them wanted to do. They just didn't know how to do it. Right. So I pretty much was the middleman. And, they would get their report cards and we'd give them pizza and rewards and certificates, and the officers would speak for a little while, and then we would reward the officers, and the parents were there. So it was like a really good feeling. I'd spend like $150, $200 doing this entire thing, but it'd be like 200 people, 8 officers, kids, a community, and it was great.
And you doing this in Baltimore City?
No, sir. I was doing this in Harford County. Now, it wasn't, but the program extended to Baltimore City. Just couldn't get no cops in Baltimore City. The kids wanted to do it. The parents wanted to do it. There was no cops. And then at a point in time, it was the total opposite in Harford County. We had the cops wanting to do it, but it was no kids. So that's where the application came from. That's where the idea hit me, right? I was thinking about so many things. I was thinking about, oh, God, what if the Pappas what if the Pappas find somebody else and replace me and I don't get this money no more? Or what if, how am I going to be able to sustain? How am I going to be able to do this? What if this happens? What if that? Like I said, I don't go to sleep at night leaving anything on the table. So I would just think, and then it hit me. Technology. With technology, I can own this application. I can, this is me. No one will ever be able to take this from me, right? And then not only that, I'll be able to join people all across the world through that platform, regardless to whether they're an officer or a child. It'll save gas. It'll save time. It'll save all of the necessary things. So it was just like, it was like a song, man. It just hit me and been pushing it ever since.
Okay, now, I think that one of the things that, most people miss out on, and you said something that was important, you said the Pappases were early investors.
Correct.
Now, what relationship did you have with them that they decided that you were someone that they want to take their risk on and invest in you?
Some of these things in this radio show is just going to date back to a lot. You'll hear, man, it was nobody but God. I have no idea. Man, at the time I was working in this restaurant. This guy was the owner. Steve Pappas was the owner. Never saw him. He'd come in, come out. Maybe you might see him once in 2 weeks, right? Go in and go out. But I think the word began to get around at the job and my lifestyle, the way that I began to conduct myself and carry myself. First of all, I was the only African American that worked at this facility, period. So you got about 60 employees. You got one black guy, right?
Wow. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the magnitude that I was working, I had a lot of customer engagement, and I was just a very nice guy at that time. Like I said, I had learned the language. I had learned how to win in that setting. So I guess people just started talking about the one black guy that worked there, and then you started hearing about my community work. pulled me aside one day and was just like, hey, man, we want to get more involved in the community. We like what you're doing. Can we be a part of this? I thought he was just running his mouth, man, because people do that all the time. They always want to be a part of what you're doing. Oh, yeah, we'll give you volunteers and all of that. So I'm like, yeah, okay, all right, whatever. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, man, he pulled me down to his office, had some money ready for me. Told me, you don't work for me no more in this capacity. This is how you work now. And it was on ever since.
So you had shared with him your dream, your vision?
No. I didn't even get to that point yet. He just wanted to do something. I know this sounds crazy, but he was just like, man, I want to do something to help the community. I want you to help me. So that's when I met with him and I said, okay, I'll help you. When he had, told me that this will now supplement my income and I could do this full time. So, we had a conversation, and the biggest part of my conversation was, look, I know you're Greek. I know you're a restaurant owner. I know this is what you're used to doing, but my work for my entire life has been dealing with my community, and I'm not going to change that. As long as we got that straight, as long as I'm not going to now start dealing with a LGBT issue, for instance, or school bullying or some of that stuff. As long as my primary focus is with law enforcement and their interactions with our community and how they engage with our community, you got me. And he said, I promise you, my heart, my care, and my concern is geared towards the same direction. I can't stand to see the way that this, my city and this world is operating as far as racial division and everything is concerned. Let's fix it. So the rest was like a marriage.
Now, you don't have to disclose how much he invested in you.
Well, it was in the paper, so it made the Baltimore Sun, so it ain't no secret.
So what was the amount?
At the beginning, I would probably say the initial investment was about $50,000. But over the period of the last 9 months, we probably getting up to about 225 grand right now.
Now, I'm not from Baltimore City, right? And when I first met you and you shared a story with me, I talked to some folks I know who are from Baltimore, and I shared with them about the restaurant. And, he doesn't have a very popular reputation in the black community.
No. Right.
So people will be shocked to know that he actually invested cash into you, right?
And another thing, man, and I guess rightfully so. And you know what? I want to say this on the air. I'm very grateful for the black community when they go into a restaurant or when they go to a car dealership or when they go somewhere and they don't see our face after a period of time to begin to question, because that's what brought about that conviction. And without us standing up for one another and valuing the presence of each other in businesses and throughout our community playing established roles, then there will never be a checks and balance. People like Steve Pappas won't ever sit back and say, you know what, maybe I do need to hire someone black. Maybe I do need to, because I'm going to be honest with you, 10, 15 years ago, if I had opened up a restaurant business, you wouldn't have saw nobody in there but us. Just because that's all I know. It's all I network with. I'm gonna give my mama a job, my cousin a job, my family, my people. I don't hang around white. I don't have white affiliate. I just didn't. I was from a different culture. I was, now of course I've widened that out. You know what I mean? Now of course I know plenty of people but he was at a place in time. You gotta understand, this man was born a millionaire. He was at a place in time in his life where he might not have been accustomed to being around a lot of black people. So he got that negative, but as a person, this man loves black people like he does, even dating back to his childhood, because now me and him are really great friends. Like, we hang out outside of this business thing, and just hearing some of his friends talk about his whole entire life wanting to be black, dealing with certain, being called certain words and certain terminology at a young age, all through middle school, high school, for wanting to deal with black people. His history as far as our culture in the 90s and in the 80s, things you'd be like, yo, I didn't know you knew that, or I didn't know you saw that, so it was just like, sometimes people just don't know. People just don't know how to interact and how to engage with one another, But I'm grateful for those African Americans, I hate that. I'm grateful for those black people that came into Pappas and say, hey, man, you need to get some black people up in here. Hey, bro, what's going on? I'm grateful for that. He may not be, but I'm glad that they started that, because without that, this would have never came about.
Okay. So now let's talk more about the app now.
Okay.
Let's talk about the functionality that app provides.
Well, so basically what the app does is it works off a reward system to get law enforcement officers and children engaged. So what happens is it's two different types of interfaces. It's an interface for a parent and a child, and then it's an interface for a law enforcement officer. So a parent and a child, for whatever reason, I don't want people to just think it's for bad kids or it's for black kids or white kids or anything. It's for any parent and any child that wants their child to have mentorship by a law enforcement officer. So mom and Daniel get together and say, you know what? Your grades are bad. You're a great student, but your grades are bad. You need a tutor or you need a mentor. They can go on this application, find a law enforcement officer and or a tutor or a mentor, or a child has a problem with, let's just say, getting into fights or whatever. Once that parent and that child come together and decide that mentorship is something that is needed, which is greatly needed in our communities, especially for our young men, they go into the application and they have a list that they can pull from, jurisdictional map of law enforcement officers, teachers, mentors in their community that will take on that relationship. That relationship is called sponsoring, right? So they pull up the profile, they find the perfect officer. You know what, I like this guy. He doesn't live too far from us. He has a profile, just like Facebook has a profile. It's a combination of Facebook, Instagram, FaceTime, Twitter, Kindle, all that stuff in one. And then it has some other features that those don't even hold. But
okay, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
yes, sir. Just
to try to give our listening audience a visual representation of the profile. So what's included in the profile? The profile will give how long that officer has been on the force, what department he works in. He'll be able to put his bio in as far as his interests. If he was a track coach, if he likes to swim. His profile also holds a library where he uploads audibles of the books that he read. So if he read Battlefield of the Mind or The Purpose-Driven Life, that audio is right there. So you get a feel of who that person is. It also holds his schedule. If he works Monday through Friday from 7 to 7 and his available times are Saturday and Sunday only, or 8 o'clock Tuesday nights and Thursday nights, that parent can look as soon as they log into that app from all of those profiles, no matter what category it is, whether it's a tutor, law enforcer, celebrity, athlete, whatever. They can go in that application and find, you know, those guidelines. So she or he, I say she because the majority of the people we're dealing with, but never mind, are mothers, single mothers. They're benefiting from this application. But they can go on that application and they can pick a relationship with someone that will be there. And that makes a big difference. If you have a mentor and your mentor is never available, never can talk to you, never can schedule time with them, then, you know, it's one and done. So anyway, once they pick this law enforcement officer, and law enforcement officer is the start. So in this application, we already have 4 NFL athletes signed up. We already have a couple of singers and actors and celebrities, working on a lot of them in the Baltimore area right now as we speak. But you have to have a law enforcement officer mentor before you can make it to that level of having an NFL player. That's an initiative that we give the children and the parent, because the number one issue goes back to law enforcement officers knowing our kids. Okay, so it's not just for law enforcement officers to be mentors. You also are bringing in, you said celebrities, athletes.
Yes, sir.
What about business people?
So it'll be a certain criteria that you'll have to pass in every, you know, gauging along the entire application. For instance, if you're a law enforcement officer, you got to go through Melvin Russell. Okay, Melvin Russell is our guy. Melvin Russell is going to be the one that looks at your profile, that tells if you had any racial, you know, anything on your record that would just that you wouldn't be. So you have to be accepted into this application. Parents and kids, as many as you want. It doesn't matter what you could have robbed the bank. No one gets turned away. But if you want to be a mentor, you have to have that educational background or that degree to show that you're qualified for that area. We have a young lady by the name of Stephanie Wendell. She's responsible for all of that, you know, that whole aspect, just checking to make sure that the teachers are certified as far as their IEPs. They can work with children with autism, or they can work with someone that has dyslexia. So once you pass that test and meet that criteria, then yes, you can. Anyone that will have a positive influence and cares about these children, you know, you can be in the application.
So does the child have a profile as well?
Yes, the child does, but it doesn't have as much information as the officer. So everyone's different. When you sign in as an officer, the only thing you're allowed to do is see the scheduling that you have ahead of you. You're allowed to look into your child's once they agree upon that sponsorship, you're allowed to look into their social media, check their page, see if they're, who they're interacting and engaging with on social media, because that's so important nowadays. You also, as a law enforcement officer, get to check into the parent's profile and see if the parent, is what they have going on. So the officer kind of police the program and then advises the parent and child based on that. So no one can ever get into any, the how can I put this? If a child is on there and a kid in the background has a bottle of Burnett, that officer is not going to write a report up that a 15-year-old was behind him with a bottle of Burnett, but he is going to reach out to that child and say, hey, man, watch the influences that you have, because a part of the officer's responsibility is to be involved with your grades and to help better you as a person. As a child, okay, you have access to see a network full of celebrities and police officers and talk to anyone and engage in anyone at any time. Almost like Facebook Live, you'll be able to see streams of different conversations. One day, someone might be talking about bullying in this, on this platform. One day, you might see Harry Kindler. He plays for the Dallas Cowboys. He's in our application. You might see him in the weight room, just working out, talking to and mentoring kids. So a kid, it's just like a big network, right? But you don't have access to everything that the parents have access to. Also, as a child, if you're being abused at home by mom or dad, and the parents schedule sessions for you so you can earn more points, but you don't want to go through a session platform, you can anonymously report a crime. You can anonymously report what's going on to you, and it goes directly to law enforcement, not to the officer that sponsors you, not the mom and dad, but directly to law enforcement to get in contact with the administrator. And then as the parent, if you're at work and there's a session set up between you and your child and a law enforcement, you have the ability to go on your lunch break, go to your phone and look in live and see what's going on, whether it be a one-on-one online session or whether it be an actual face-to-face. My child's going down to the community center to work with the officer. You have access to see and gauge all of that. So it's different for everyone, as far as those three parties are involved.
Okay, so you said Melvin Russell is the person that kind of vets the
police officers, right? We got him as of this week.
Okay, so who vets the athletes? In other words, who is there a certain person that's from that particular industry that vets other folks from the industry?
No, sir. And in particular, because the athletes and celebrity roles, it's a little different. I'm going to be honest with you. They're not as engaged. They're more of a part of our reward system. They're the shiny object that we dangle for the kids. So as a law enforcement officer might spend 10 hours a week on the app, these athletes and these professionals, they're at the high tier, they might spend 10 hours every 3 months on the app.
Okay.
So all they do is make guest appearances and their rewards. Once our child reaches a certain level, we want Odell Beckham Jr. to have a conversation with that child one-on-one online. And the athletes that we pitch this to, they're in love with it because let's look at it. Odell Beckham Jr. has to do community work. All of them have to. What they usually do is go visit one sickly child at a St. John's hospital who's dealing with cancer with his head wrapped up that won't remember anything. And they're gone all day. They do that all day. No disrespect, but the kid doesn't look nothing like him. The kid doesn't come from a culture that he comes from. It's just, he's my hero. Yeah, you've affected that one life, and it took you all day to do that. With our application, you can log on from the practice field, and in 5 minutes, you can reach 1,000 children and impact 1,000 children's lives and change the way that they view their education and how hard they have to work to be successful. And the promise of coming back 2 months later and maybe giving 4 or 5 of them tickets to your game. First of all, it's a lot cheaper than the St. Jude's trip, but that will motivate those 1,000 kids to bust their butt and do everything in their power to stay on track for that opportunity. So,
okay. Now, so you basically have a virtual community of people engaging in one another, children engaging with police officers, being rewarded, and then based off their activity, they can get other incentives to engage with athletes.
Yes, sir.
And celebrities.
Private community. Yes, sir.
Private community.
No one that does not go through this criteria as far as law enforcement officers and mentors or parents and children that come together and agree to the terms will be in the application.
Now, is it free for children in the community to join?
It's free for everyone. Law enforcement officers, children, mentors, tutors. Not only is it free, but you're rewarded to all kinds of different incentives: sneakers, video games, McDonald's, crab cakes from Papa's, you name it, for your time that you participate. Because see, we want to motivate these officers and these children to work with each other. We know kids aren't just going to go download an application to have a relationship with a law enforcement. Like, who the hell would do that? You know what I mean? I know I wouldn't do it at 12 years old if you talk to me.
Right.
But if I'm from an underprivileged community and at 12 years old you tell me, hey, Madden NBA 2K comes out in 2 weeks and we don't got no money to get it, but it's this free application. And if you go down to the police department and have a 30-minute conversation with a law enforcement officer about some things that you want to see changed in your community, you get 250 points, and those 250 points are redeemable right to your phone where you can go on GameStop, scan, and get your Madden 2K. Trust me, them kids gonna go have that conversation. You know.
So DJ Rock, let me bring you into this conversation. You from Baltimore. You obviously was a youth. You had kids. You raised some children. What are your thoughts about the PAPA's, or the PAP, right?
Yes, sir.
Application.
This man is a genius.
Thank you, brother.
And it's funny, King, because he did the very thing that we were talking about before he was able to step into the studio. He found a way to grab their attention, connect with the youth, to give them what they want by giving them what they need. Great job, brother.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And you know, I like to say, because a lot of people focus on the children, it serves a great purpose for law enforcement as well. No more 19-year-old law enforcement officers from West Virginia that don't understand how our kids talk, how our kids communicate. The application is filled with initiatives, and the initiatives is how these kids get rewarded. The very first initiative is the book challenge, where law enforcement officers, through their downloaded library, a child has to listen to that book that the officer listened to, and then they have to engage in a conversation and talk about their different points of views, what that law enforcement officer got from that book, and what this 13-year-old child gets from that book. So if that officer is 21, you see the mentality change, you know, over the 8 years. You see what I'm saying? And they get a better understanding of who our kids are. And the more familiar that they become with our children, their voices, their faces, it's just, man, you don't know people. But the minute you sit down and you have a conversation with my son, regardless to what his hair looks like, regardless to how big he is at 16 years old, and regardless to that rap video you watched 5 minutes ago, you know my son and you see him for who he is. So the more time that we can get these officers in front of our children and in front of the members of our community, the less subjective they are to jump out with their guns drawn. You know, they might jump out on a child that's not your child, but he looks like your child, and he reminds him of a relationship with your child. So he's less subjective to judge him and to see him as a threat. It does just as much, if not more, for the policing relationship part of it than it does for the child, in my opinion.
Now, based on what you just said there, so let me ask this question. If I am a youth and I engage with a police officer on utilizing the app, what is it that will continue to keep me engaged even though my environment is negative? Like, in other words, what I mean by that is the culture within our community is that we don't want to talk to the police. Like, I don't know why our community decides that we want to be enemies with the police. I get why the police, I get the thought process behind that, but my point is, as a strategy, it doesn't make sense. Right, because we're not going to win that battle. Yeah, it's not a war we're going to win. So it makes sense to do what you're doing, but my question is, how do you bridge the trust factor where our culture is don't snitch, don't talk to the cops? Like, you can't even ride around in a police car in our community without folks thinking that you crossed over. So it's a us against them type of mentality community. So how do you bridge that? Very thoughtfully and slowly. So the good thing about the way that this application is designed, these initiatives give us our way
to, how can I put this? Some of the initiatives that we have in the app, I would say 40% of them don't even involve a law enforcement officer, but it's slowly gearing you towards building that relationship, like our elderly challenge, right? Because it's so many things that gear us towards that negative way of thinking as far as separation from law enforcement and the those that are doing good to versus. So first, we try to work on that child's mentality. The elderly challenge, you got to go to a nursing home, right? And you got to spend a certain amount of time with someone elderly, right? So hearing wisdom from someone that's older than you might change the way that you think a little bit. And then we have challenges in there that, like the community cleanup challenge, right? Where you have to go out in your community, within walking distance of your community, and take video and pictures of yourself cleaning up your community. These things have nothing to do with law enforcement officers, right? Then it's a good deed challenge, where if you do a good deed, like carry some bags for someone elderly or help someone restore something, you take a picture and a video, submit it, and everything pending, you get rewarded for that. These are beginning to change character. Those are the lowest rewards in the application. Those are what you get 100 points for. That's what you get 250 points for. But if you want 2,500 points, if you want that big winner so you can get that Lamar Jackson jersey, then you got that, you scrolling down, you're like, man, I'm killing this application right now. I didn't have to deal with any cops. I didn't have to snitch. I didn't have to have a relationship with nobody. And I just got me a free hamburger from McDonald's. Wait a minute. I can get a Lamar Jackson jersey and tickets to the Ravens game? Oh, God, but this one, I got to go meet with the cop. Well, it says right here he's not going to be in uniform. Maybe I should just try it.
Oh, okay. So he's not going to be in uniform.
Right. Not all the challenges.
Okay.
No, right. Because not only do the children have initiatives, the law enforcement officers and the mentors have initiatives too, right? Some of the like one of the law enforcement officer challenges is to walk the community that you police. You'd be surprised how many of these cops live in Bel Air, policing in Baltimore City, and never get out and walk in Baltimore City. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So some of these challenges, they bring the law enforcement officers in our community, and find 3 or 4 children that find 3 or 4 children in the application, and go knock on the door and introduce yourself, right? That's one of their challenges, right? So whether that kid is meeting with you or not, if you're in this program, guess what? That officer he's gonna find you, and eventually eventually you're gonna jump into that opportunity for that points and reward system to develop a relationship.
Okay, so who creates the incentives, and who has say so, and what incentives are created, and what incentives are improved upon or removed or not allowed?
Well, that's a good question, and it's a combination of people. Myself, we have a gentleman by the name of Mark Baronis, and he runs all the park and recs in Baltimore City. He's I forgot his title. It's like council something, but he just he's the head of all the parks and recs in Baltimore City. And then just our staff and our team. We have a lady by the name of Harriet Goldberg. We think about all of these different incentives and all these different ways to get people engaged based off community development work that we've done, our relationship with children, and what's necessary in today's society to keep children engaged and incentivized, what kids really want.
Okay, now as a conscious business, right?
Yes, sir.
Conscious capitalism is pretty much based on 4 core principles. Number 1, get to have a higher purpose for your business than just making money. Principle number 2 is stakeholder orientation, which we say stakeholders have a say in your business. Your stakeholders typically are your employees, your customers, your strategic partners. In your case, it'd be the police and those individuals like that you build relationships with. Then it'd be also your community itself. The community has a say. And then finally, your shareholders, the investors in your company, right?
Right.
Now, each has their own individual connection to your business, and each has their own individual say in your business, right?
Yes, sir.
And as a conscious business, you have to meet with them and hear their feedback and take in their criticism and adjust your business accordingly, right? It's this virtuous exchange is happening. Principle 3 is conscious leadership, where you create a business to solve a problem, not to make money. Even though we're for-profit businesses, we create a business to solve a problem, and through the impact that our business has on the community in the marketplace, our profits are commensurate with that.
Right.
And then principle 4 is conscious culture, which we believe in paying a living wage. We believe in diversity hiring. We believe in running our company according to core principles like love, trust, transparency, accountability, integrity, things of that nature. Now, I said that to frame the context of my question, which is that principle number 2, stakeholder orientation. So now, with an app like yours that has a impact of engaging the community, I would see that community engagement has to be key, right?
Yes, sir.
And survey and input from the community has to be there. Some form of a process, because I get what you're saying as far as your team that you said you've assembled to do the incentives. But having some form of checks and balances, some form of survey, some
Absolutely.
form of community engagement to say, are these the best incentives for the community? What incentives are missing? What incentives can be modified? So you have a process in place for that type of interaction.
You know what? I'm glad you mentioned that, because that gives me an opportunity to go ahead and plug that. So we do have a survey. A survey is built into the application. So when you apply to become a member of the application, it's going to ask you some questions. What do you think this program will help deal with as far as decreasing violence for the youth, or as far as racial tension in the area? It's just a survey, and you can get to that survey by texting PAPP in capital letters to 21,000. So that's how you give us that feedback. It'll be right to your phone, and say it does say it may charge you, but it won't. No charges will be applied. But yes, we do have a survey, and that's how you apply for the app. You can't be in the application until we have your input, what you're looking for to get out of the application, and like you spoke to, to that feedback. So that's a part of the actual application process. And we have, we keep all of those records. All of that stuff is in our data system, and it's charted. And once you sign up for the app, you'll be taking a survey somewhat similar to that, just formed differently as far as questions to engage whether we're improving in those areas or not, based on your relationship with the application and time with the application.
Now, I also believe you told me at some point that the application also it connects with other social media platforms.
Yes, sir.
And it does that for what reason?
Because it has to change. We have to change the dynamics. So we reach everybody. Remember, it's a closed community as far as the application is concerned. But the message, we want that to spread abroad. 2 of our challenges are the Facebook challenge and the Instagram Speak Out challenge, and it's for officers and children. So every quarter they'll have the challenge to where they have to record themselves postings, whether it be speaking on violence, bullying, drugs in their community, speaking out instead of the whole no snitch mentality, but speaking out on what's right. They have to record a statement, and then post it to their personal social media pages, right? Because when you become a leader, and because when you're on your right path, a part of that is to be proud of who you are, and not only to be proud, but to get more people on that right path that you're on. So we challenge our children to do that. Hey, don't just say, I'm a good kid and hide in the closet. You be a good kid and you be a prideful person, and then project that out there for your peers to see, so they can see it's okay. Man, when I started working with the police, with my background and my family, oh my God, it took me literally like 2 months just to even tell someone that knew me, because instantly I thought it was over for me, but the more I began to come out and tell people what I was doing, what was going on, man, family, I'm talking about D-boys, thugs, G's. Hey, man, I love what you're doing. Man, I love what you're doing, man. You on the right path, man. Yo, I want to come speak at one of your events. I want to talk to some of your kids. So I want to teach that same mentality to our children in the program, and that's why we make them use their own. And when I say make, if you want those points, everything is a choice. You can get the application and don't ever get 1 point. Just look at officers speak and look at athletes. We're still having a positive impact. But if you want to benefit from this, because our message is being heard, right? That's the main thing. But if you want to benefit as far as tear them rewards up and get as much as you can get out of it, then yeah, you have to project that message outside of this application. And that's how we change the dynamics. When people see 5 or 6 12-year-olds right down the street from them that go in their classroom, in their community, speaking out about the relationship that they develop with the law enforcement officer, that changes the mentality of the rest of the class. That changes the dynamics of how other children view law enforcement officers. I've seen it happen throughout this work, so that's why it's so important for us. Same thing with law enforcement officers. It's important for them to get involved with the Instagram challenge, where they have to go to a playground and play with children and record it. And I'm not talking about go to St. Mary's. You know, these are different areas that we have set up. These are different, like we do it with churches in underprivileged communities, and mainly underprivileged. Our big cash cow is underprivileged and underfunded rec programs. That's where the need is at. Those rec programs where you got, that's our group. That was our, where you got 20 kids that are in 12 to 13 years old that have the beat up uniforms, that don't have the parent support, that, you know, somebody's trying to find something for them to do, they're paying for something to do, but usually they don't have no direction. So those are the places that we send our officers, and that we get our officers to show their engagement so the community can know, because now you get these law enforcement officers showing people that may not look like us or that may not be from our community, from their personal pages, hey man, I'm getting involved. I'm out here in Patterson Park having fun with these kids and dealing with these kids. Then what happens? The other businessmen that are disconnected and the other people from their community, that from St. Mary's and everything, they see it and they're like, you know what? Maybe I should get more involved. Maybe, and then they begin to see these kids and see us differently. So it's all about social engagement. It's very important.
So, what stage is the app in currently? What I mean by that is it in beta or is it full release?
It's in the beta stage. You can download it right now to your phone and play with it and play around with it. We're plugging in pictures and people now that are already engaged in the application. It will be released in August of 2019, but only for Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Hartford County as a test run for a year. And then 2020 of August, it'll be released to worldwide.
Okay, so what capabilities does it have? It has all those capabilities you described right now.
Everything.
Out of the box?
Everything out the box.
And so what do you want to take it? What's the next level? I mean, because I'm sure you're raising capital. What's the capital raise for then?
How much money we're raising? How much money do we wish to raise to?
Not so much the purpose. In other words, what would the capital be used to do?
Well, first, we've got to scale how the application works. As far as, in order to get a patent, we have to have scientific proof that what we're doing is actually affecting these children. So we have to take our children to get our children tested. We found a doctor already in Hopkins. Our officers tested in the first week, 6 months, and then a year to show and chart that progress. And then second,
tested for what?
For results. It's easy for someone to say, hey, this works. This is going to make kids feel more comfortable about law enforcement officers. But until that child sits down, I don't know what they call it, but the neural test, where they put it on your fingers and your head and they test your brain waves to see if you even have a fear for law enforcement officers. You know, and then we can actually, when we test these children, we can actually compare the data to see if we're having an effect or not. You know, 6 months from now, you know, it shows that they were scared before, and you got this polygram, you know, this machine showing that, hey, they're not lying. These kids really are cool with officers now. These kids feel more comfortable and safe in their environment. And then it shows the same thing for, we can take that scientific proof as long as it's been tested properly and receive a patent for it, to where this can be exercised across the world, right? This is a breakthrough, a scientific breakthrough as far as technology is concerned. So a lot of the money goes into research, but then we got to go to Chicago and my team and my staff, and we got to set up for 6 weeks, and we got to teach Chicago how to do it. And then we got to teach DC and LA and New York. We have to go to these different areas and implement these different programs around the world. We want to get this program passed through the state of Maryland first, as far as in a bill, to where every school system every child at every Baltimore City school has this option to buy into this program. And then until we get Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, McDonald's. We got to put them sandwiches on that application. We got to make sure that they're able to get that John Madden for doing those type of hours. And now along the lines, we'll get those type of sponsors, and I'm sure that all of that stuff will be taken care of and donated. But for the first year, we have to buy that. We have to literally fill out our reward system.
So then, from a percentage standpoint of the revenue that you're raising, how much of the revenue would be applied to more application development, or more of the testing and quantitative data research and things that you need in order to support the application?
That's a great question. Well, the application development is already done and paid for. That ran about $57,000, so that's already done. We'll never have to revisit that again. Now, the maintenance of the application monthly runs about $3,000, $36,000 annually. So that's all it's going to cost, just to make sure that the glitches and the kinks are out. So we have very little cost as far as that's concerned. The bulk of the money will be paying the staff's salary, paying for the staff's travel, and paying for the research done in the application. We have an exquisite team of professionals that are going to be gauging this application. I mean, we've got the best of the best. I don't think it gets better than Melvin Russell as far as police and community relationships. 40 years in Baltimore City, Ron Diamond riots, he's seen it all. And that's his particular. We got to make sure that we take care of Mr. Russell. We also have a tech guy on our behalf outside of Tech Rebel. Shout out to Tech Rebel. That's the company that's doing the application development. Outside of Tech Rebel, we also have a gentleman on our side that polices our application and makes sure that the bugs and the kinks and the updates and everything's are worked out. School teachers that we have on board. We just have to make sure that the staff is taken care of, because this isn't a hobby. This is something you got to do full time.
All right. Now, what are some of the best ways that the community who's listening can be active and support this?
I'll demand it. Well, it's already in Baltimore City, in Baltimore County, and Harford County, right? We're doing that this year. But outside of that scope, if you're in Miami and you know that there's something out there that is rewarding kids for being involved in law enforcement officers, don't cost a thing. They can get tutors for their education. They can have positive role models. Demand it. Demand it from your councilmen, demand it from your mayors. Say, hey, I heard about this PAT program in Baltimore, and it's working. It's changing lives. We want that here. Just to be aware and demand that's brought to your community.
So speaking of Baltimore City, how much support are you getting from the city?
Oh, man, too much. You could never have too much, but it's just been overwhelming. Mainly with the app. When I was doing it before and I didn't have the application, no support whatsoever, to be honest. But now I guess that people see the vision and they see it coming to fruition. I haven't talked to or dealt with anyone that hasn't given me their full 100% support.
So you've spoken with like Jack Young or any city council? I
haven't spoke with the new mayor, but I've spoke with the police commissioner. He actually came to our first event, our launch, and our fundraiser. He was there, talked about the program, talked about how much he loved the program. I'm still in meetings with him. Catalina Rodriguez from the mayor's office. She's the Latino liaison. She's helping us with a big part of helping us with the Latino community, because it provides so many different benefits for the Latino community. That's a whole different show. But as well as people like yourself, Tracy Estep from the mayor's office for African American male engagement. These are all people that I'm on a daily basis, talking with on the phone and in communications as far as support. So the city's been great. I can't say anything negative about the cooperation. Of course, we'd like things to happen a little faster, but some of the things that are going on in our city right now, I know that takes precedent. As far as the mayor situation and the newly elected police commissioner, Mr. Harris. But yeah, they've been great. I'm just an average Joe, man. I'm just an average Joe, and they've let me sit in their office. I've had the opportunity to go to the State House and be set up at the State House and talk to multiple members of the Senate, multiple delegates. Another shout out to Delegate Cheryl Glenn and Delegate Brooke Learman for all their help and all their engagement. Delegate Boyd. But yeah, I've had the opportunity to talk to all of these wonderful people, and all of them sign off on the application. Delegate Nino right now is pushing to have this passed as a bill. You know, like he wants this as a bill. So yeah, I've gotten nothing but support.
Okay, now the name PAP, you said it came from Papyrus, right? Your first
Just an
investment.
acronym, yes sir. Just an acronym.
Did he pay for those naming rights?
No, that was
That was you something you wanted to do.
I wanted to do that for him.
And how do you feel about that? How do you receive that?
Honored. First he said, "No, man, this is all you. It should have your name on it. It should be this, that, and the third." But realistically, you know, I realized that the initial investments that they made, them taking me off my job, you know, and what they've done, I felt like it was worthy. You know, it was worth. I don't care about credit or glory or none of that stuff. You know, I care about the work. So it was just a small. Plus, the acronym fits so well. Policing, because I was trying to think of a name, and when I was trying to think of a name, I noticed all the letters that I needed with P and A, and here goes my investor. So you know what? Let me just do this. So yeah.
And what does the acronym stand for again?
Policing and Parenting Partnership, because that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
It's a partnership.
Now, how much money are you seeking to raise?
For the first year, I want 2.5, but I'm gauging this business out. I don't think I'll have to raise money after the first year. I think the money will come. So it's not something that I'm trying to, it's not something that I want to, put out there that I'm raising money for. It's going to take 2.5 million to get it through this first year, and we're gauging that right now with an investor. And then after that, I see that the as far as the capital is sky's the limit.
Now, what's incentive for? Because I haven't heard really, you haven't discussed for our listening audience. What's the revenue streams that this app can actually bring? Because I know it's free to download and utilize.
Right. Well, from oh goodness, from a whole, it depends. And if you're looking at it from a corporate standpoint, or well, let's start with that first. From a corporate standpoint, this application gives us access to so many different visuals, video, pictures, and imagery of real law enforcement officers, real children, real teachers and volunteers in that community that are actually doing good work. And business is based on two common principles, no matter how in depth it gets. It's supply and demand. What you have and what people need. Right. And right now, with the state of this nation, there is a need for racial empathy. There is a need to see good. There is a need for a positive light, but there is nothing out there. If you type it, and Lorette told me I had to be careful, so I'm going to take her advice. Nothing out there. There is very little out there that you can find to show a good working relationship between a white law enforcement officer and a black child, or an Hispanic law enforcement officer. It's just not available. We offer these corporations access to that. So, for instance, if McDonald's was to sponsor our application, donate 10 million sandwiches along with $1 million, okay, they have access to, in the next year, this is scaled to be about 500,000 participants. They have access to over 500,000 real videos, real images of real good positive stuff done in the community that they can take and use for their own purposes, for promotional purposes, for commercials. You know how the Colin Kaepernick commercial came out, right? Nike took that stand, then Colin Kaepernick, he gets up, he says a little piece, they show the Nike check, and then guess what happens? All the way up, right?
Right.
Some people are burning his jersey, but their stocks is through the roof because they put out pictures and imagery of the stand that they took. And with the shape of the nation, the people who were behind it, it shifted.
Right.
It shifted their capital, Nike's capital, through the roof. So what happens when we don't necessarily take a side or point fingers, but we say, you know what, we're going to unify. And not only are we going to unify, we're going to build up. We're going to bring them together, and then we're going to support these children. And we're going to find a way to reward these law enforcement officers. Now, McDonald's, you take the video and the imagery of that, and you put your logo on it, and you put that commercial out there, and let's see what happens with your stock, right?
Right.
These companies have this money to do it anyway. You might as well do it on a hot topic. You might as well do it somewhere where it's actually gauging and touching people's heart. Because I guarantee you, if you play that commercial, during the NFL before someone takes a knee, I guarantee you people are going to say, see, that's what they should be doing. They should be in the PAP program. I don't want McDonald's. I don't want Burger King. So that's an incentive from as far as from a corporate level of how to bring, how it would help them generate revenue. Okay.
Now, what other methods have you thought about from a revenue stream?
Well, if you look at this, I forgot the name of it, but it's this new application in Baltimore City, I believe. No, I'm sorry, it's Baltimore County. In January, it's a police scanner app, right? This guy, he invented a police scanner application to where if you live in a certain area, before you go home, you can just check on the scanner, and it's free. You can just go check on the scanner, and it'll tell you. That's how bad it is. It's a shame. Every time I talk about it, it makes my head hurt to know that there's a scanner out there. Before you come home from work, you log on the scanner, and you see if somebody's getting robbed next door. I mean, or something's happening, so you can avoid that. So basically, it's a police scanner application. This gentleman that invented it, I got to get his name for the next time I'm on the radio and the name of the application. But he's getting $90,000 annually right now. To have the residents of Baltimore County use this application. $90,000, and I'm not discrediting anything he's doing. It's a genius, brilliant idea. But a police scanner is literally a 50th of what my application does for our community. $90,000. Ours is going to be a little bit more expensive as far as the Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Harford County for this first year, trial basis, completely free. Once we prove that this works, once we prove that this is effective, more effective than a police scanner, our asking price is going to be a little bit more than $90,000. It's 3,100 counties in the United States of America. If we can get a tenth of that, we have 310 counties using this program. If we was to charge, let's just say, 100,000 versus the 90, that already puts us, that already puts our numbers way up.
Speaking of which, you just brought up a question to me with the police scanner. So is there a way where a youth who has a relationship with a police officer can report a crime?
Yes, it's two ways. One is anonymous, to where, let's just say, I'm Timmy, you're my officer. An officer can only sponsor 5 children at a time, and that's so it maintains integrity. So there'll be no cops with 20 kids trying to get as many jerseys as they can. Okay? They're cycled through from the ages of 10 to 16, but they can have a following based on their videos of millions. All right. So me and you got a great relationship. You're changing my life. Something bad happens. I don't even want to tell you because you're my officer. You're going to get pissed off at me for being in the right place at the right time. You can report that crime to anyone in the application, not just your mentoring officer, okay? And then it has a feature where you also can report it anonymously. So they don't even know who it's coming from or where it's coming from. That's in case you're being abused. That's for all types of scenarios. Let's say you're being abused, or let's say someone next door to you is selling drugs and things are going on. It's different ways that you can report those crimes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we're getting to the top of the hour, and I wanted you to share how folks can download this app, what platforms it's on, and how they can get in contact with you.
Okay, so by texting PAPP, all capital letters, to the number 21000 or 21,000, it will give you the survey that we spoke of briefly, and it'll get all your contact information for the application and to get you enrolled in the application. You also can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, on the PAP program, under the PAP program, and then you can always leave us an email or check our website. The website is markpapasfoundation.org. So that's www.markpapasfoundation.org.
Okay. And what would be one of the things you would want to leave with our listening audience as a summary about what PAP is about, and just kind of what your future for PAP and you will hold?
Well, I want to challenge, generally, because I'm not saying it's all I care about, but it's my primary focus. I want to challenge our community to hold our government accountable, to hold our law enforcers accountable, to have a relationship with our children. I think that's the most important thing. Not to be to be proactive and not to wait till somebody dies to get involved and to march and to do things. Like while it's quiet, while nobody's getting killed, while nothing is going on, let's have that same energy and enthusiasm to try to create a change. And it starts with engagement, community engagement.
And what is your level of commitment for making sure that this application gets out and distributed and used in the world?
With everything in me, this is my life's work. Like, you know, at the end of the day, this is it for me. This is what I plan on my legacy being built around. I want to be a part of the change, and I want my name to be solidified as a person that came up with some type of technology or some type of problem-solving device that helped better my culture as a black man, pretty much.
So, DJ Rock, you got any final words you want to add to this before we get ready to close this session out here soon?
Just want to thank our brother for coming by, and I want to thank you for coming up with a solution that can possibly turn this community around, because we need it right now, brother.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, I want to commend you as well. That's why I wanted to have you on the show, because I think that what I want to do is highlight your story, make people aware of it, make people conscious of the fact that you're someone who had some trouble in your past, made some mistakes. We all have, we all do, but it's not what happens to us that defines us. It's what we do and how we respond what happens to us. And you decided that you were going to learn from the things that happened to you, and you came out as a better person from it. As a matter of fact, a person committed to serving, and I'm a person who believes that's my higher purpose in life. So I want to commend you for just, first of all, making that change to become a different person, to become a better person, and then secondly, having the competence and the commitment to follow through on creating an application in a business in an environment where it's not normally easily accepted. So I definitely want to take my hats off for you for doing that.
Thank you, Mr. King, and thank you for all your behind-the-scenes help with this entire process. This wouldn't be possible without you. So thank you very much for everything that you've done to help guide me to this point, and your continued work with me throughout this whole entire process. Thank you.
I appreciate it. But, you know, as DJ Rock said, you know, we just really getting on the verge, or I should say we're really at the genesis of really what we intend to do.
Right.
You know, and one of the things that's really going to help bridge community and policing is communication. You know, we got to get beyond just pointing fingers at each other and saying this person's to blame, but truly engaging in honest dialogue. You know, one of the things that I see that your app does, and that's what you and I was talking about earlier, DJ Rock, when you talked about the youth, is when you talked about the fact that the officer can see your son now, and then also be able to resonate with other kids in the community based on that connection. Basically, what your app is doing is turning police officers into humans for the young men in the community, and they're turning the young men in the community to humans for the police officers. Now they begin to see the humanity in each other, that we have some things in common, that you also read some of the books I've read, you watch some of the movies I've read, you have some of the same hobbies that I have, you know, and we can begin to build and form relationships upon those connection threads. So I think that's very and vitally important. I think that, you know, you definitely have hit something that is needed in our community. You know, I think that's something that's going to bring about change. I look forward to supporting you in that endeavor.
Thank you.
And I look forward to the infinite possibilities that are going to come as a result of the ongoing commitment and change that you're bringing about.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Proud to be a part of it.
And for our listening audience, this has been the Conscious Capitalist Show. And as always, as we begin to close out on this great Friday, I want to share with you tomorrow we are having our Conscious Roundtable event at Compton State University from 10:30 to 1:30. You can go to our website at www.consciousrt.com. That's www.consciousrt as in roundtable.com. And tomorrow we have a very special guest coming. We have a gentleman by the name of Arnold Williams, who is going to be coming out talking about the opportunity zones and how our community can take advantage of these new funding mechanisms to either fund real estate development or invest in businesses in opportunity areas. And so that's going to be vital. So if you want to come out for that, go to our website, register for that. Look for the Conscious Roundtable on Facebook by searching for Conscious RT. You can connect with us on Twitter as well and Instagram by searching for Conscious RT. And I want to leave you all with my wish for you. This is my wish for you. Comfort on difficult days, smiles when sadness intrudes, rainbows to fall the clouds, laughter to kiss your lips, sunsets to warm your hearts, hugs when your spirits sag, beauty for your eyes to see, friendships to brighten your being, faith so that you can believe, confidence from when there's doubt, courage to know yourself, patience to accept the truth, and love to complete your life. This has been the Conscious Capitalist Show. I'm your host, King, and for the rest of the listening audience, let's all be more conscious.
American way.
Conscious leadership.
It's time, come on. It's time, come on.
Conscious culture.
You can do it, yeah. You can do it. Come on.
Stakeholder orientation. Conscious capitalist. Conscious capitalist. Conscious
with folks.
Higher purpose.
American way. American way.
Conscious leadership.
It's time, come on. It's time, come on.
Conscious culture.
You can do it. You can do it.
Stakeholder orientation. Conscious capitalist.
King.
Conscious
with folks.
capitalist. Conscious capitalist.
Come on.
Conscious